Welcome to episode 3 of the Monday Morning Point Guard podcast. On this week's episode, we're going to be going through the Western Conference, kind of recapping what the teams did last year, as well as kind of projecting into the future what things should look like for them this year. We're going to kick it off with the Jazz, who were the number 1 seed last year. Last year, they had a pretty good run. They had a great regular season, good run into the playoffs. They ran into the Clippers and lost in 5 games, I believe. Donovan Mitchell got hurt, which kind of derailed them. This year, they're just kind of running it back for the most part. They re-signed Conley for 3 years, $68 million. And then they end up bringing in kind of some new bench guys. Jared Butler was a draft pick they had. Rudy Gay, Eric Pascal, and Hassan Whiteside. They're projected at 52.5 wins for the year, so 53-29. I think that's an easy over. I think they won 52 games last year in a shortened season. You're basically saying, can they get one more win with 10 extra games to do it? I think that's probably an easy over.
Yeah, I have them pretty high in the West as well. I'm taking over on that.
Yeah, I believe I had them. I didn't write it down, but I think I had them 3rd in the West this year, which I think they'll probably be closer to 60 wins than 50. So if you're betting, I think this is Draftkings odds. So I think that's a pretty easy over. How did you feel about 3 years, 68 for Mike Conley?
I don't know if I like the years or the number there. I mean, he'd be a solid backup to have at this point. I don't know if I really like him as a starting point guard for a team that's contending, especially for that price.
Yeah,
I'm a huge fan of it.
He's a little old. They kind of have to do it just because Utah's not really a free agent destination.
Yeah.
Not really a lot of other options on the table. If they can get like another year or two out of him, like good years, then that's fine. Yeah, I think they're just going to kind of run into the same thing they did last year, where teams are just going to pick on Gobert in the playoffs because he was basically unplayable down the stretch in that Clippers series. They continued to play him, but it was just him getting picked on.
He was getting burned.
Yeah, and unfortunately for them, do you see a center option for like a smaller lineup? That's one thing that's like kind of key in today's league, is to have versatile lineups. I don't see it for them. I guess you can run Rudy Gay or Pascal, but I don't think Pascal
played a little bit of center before, but I mean,
I'm not thrilled about it. I don't think that addresses. I don't think he's much better on the perimeter defense wise than anyone else they have, I guess, for like a interior presence. Whiteside is like just a non-factor from his Heat days. Kind of like what we talked about, DeAndre Ayton does all the little things, and that's why we love him. Hassan Whiteside is the opposite. He doesn't do any of the little things. He doesn't box out. He doesn't run the floor. He's not a good on-ball defender for like defense being the thing he hangs his hat on. He can block shots on like weak side help, but he is not defending anybody in the post one-on-one. And yeah, I don't know. They're going to run into the same. They're going to win a lot of regular season games, but I think they're going to run into the same issues in the playoffs that they had last year. And unfortunately, I don't think the trade market for Gobert is really going to be anything they could, dip into. I will say with Gobert, he did kind of dominate inside in the Olympics. Did any of that convince you that he would be able to translate that to the regular season or in the playoffs?
If they keep him on the inside, definitely. But I mean, once you pull him out and you get a guard on him, he's kind of just toast.
Yeah, my issue with him, besides the defensive stuff, if he's your second best player, like he kind of needs to be dominating inside on the offense for him to justify being on the court down the stretch of games. And he just doesn't do that enough to like really excite you or carry a team in the playoffs. He showed in the Olympics that he can do it, but for whatever reason, he just kind of plays soft inside offensively, come playoff time. The easy over during the regular season. I think they'll probably have a shorter playoff run than they would like, or you would hope with whatever they end up finishing as during the regular season. All right, and moving on, same division to the Nuggets. They had a pretty good season. You want to tell us how they did?
Yeah, I mean, they were strong until Murray went down. They, got hit with the Suns in foreplay, unfortunately. But I don't know when he's supposed to come back, probably late season, and they're pretty much the same core as they were last year. I think Jeff Green was a pretty good pickup for him in terms of like a 3-and-D bench guy. Um, I have MPJ as my most improved candidate this year. I think with Murray out, he's probably in the best position with a good team, and he's the second option on the team now.
I think he's a really. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
46.5 is low to me. I think that's, you know, where they were last year with just a shorter season. I don't have them very high in the conference this year, but I think they'd probably still hit the over.
Yeah, I think they got bumped to 47.5, which is not a huge difference. But 48 wins on the season. I don't know. I'm kind of indifferent on them. I could see them struggling if Michael Porter Jr. doesn't step up. But he is a really good candidate for most improved player. Looking at their roster, I don't love the wing situation, and I don't love what they have outside of Jokic for like inside play. I guess you just move Gordon to the 5 whenever Jokic is not on the court, and you just kind of run and spread it out. They do get Murray back in March, I believe, is his target for right now. So they're going to be a dangerous playoff team. Their seed is going to be lower than what it should be. If Murray comes back even 75% of what he's normally capable of doing, I think they're probably a dark horse contender to win the West. But I think they might. I kind of lean towards the under on them for the regular season. So that's one that we disagree. But I don't feel super strongly about that one. If I was betting, I would probably stay away from it.
Yeah, I have them as a 5 seed. So in the West, getting above 47 is hard enough. Their lineup isn't much different than it was last year. Like I don't think they got any worse necessarily.
No, I don't think so either. I mean, they lost Paul Millsap and JaVale McGee, but they get back Jeff Green and Tarek Black, which I didn't realize he was still around. I can't imagine he'll play a lot for them. But yeah, Jeff Green is a good pickup. They bring back Austin Rivers. They really just are running it back, which they kind of have to with their cap situation. And they do give the 5-year max to Michael Porter Jr. Do you feel like that was money well spent for them?
I think it will be. When we get to the Suns, we'll talk about it, but I just don't know how a guy like that's getting a max and 8 and isn't. So
yeah. I think you have to with him. I mean,
I'd give it to him.
He could be a 25 a game scorer in the league in a couple of years. I think he's getting close. I mean, I wouldn't feel too bad about giving him the max, and like if you did, somebody else would have. So that's
exactly.
That's really fine. Next up in the Northwest Division are the Blazers. They lost in 7 games, I believe, to the Nuggets last season. They made some changes in the offseason, nothing too significant, nothing changing the starting lineup for them in all likelihood. They're projected at 44.5 wins, so a record of 45-37. I think that's probably an over. I feel pretty good about saying over. I feel like every year with them, we're like, oh, this is the year they don't make the playoffs, or this is the year they struggle, and they rarely ever do. Like they're normally in the top 6 seeds. Like Damian Lillard just carries them year in and year out. He was in the MVP conversation for a little bit last year. I think he'll kind of be in the mix again this year. I doubt he, ends up near the top 3 for voting, but I think people are going to talk about him a little bit for that. Yeah. How do you feel about the 44.5 wins for them?
I'd go under only because I have them as my 8 seed, which is like where I have them every single year, and they always just are like a 5 or a 6 or even a 3 sometimes.
I had them as a 6, not because I felt like they had a better roster. I just feel like that's always where they end up.
Yeah, they never look like they're going to be a solid team, but they always end up a shoe-in for the playoffs.
Yeah, I actually like what the bench moves that they made. I thought 5 years, 90. They re-signed Norman Powell for 5 years, 90. I thought that was steep for Norman Powell, but he was pretty good for him last year. I don't know. I don't love the size on that perimeter with Norman Powell basically playing small forward, because I think you go 6'3" Lillard, 6'3" McCollum, and I don't know what is Powell, 6'4", 6'5". That's tough. Robert Covington then is 6'5", and Nurkic, who is not a defensive center by any stretch, is your center spot. they're going to give up a ton of points, but they're also capable of scoring a ton of points.
Yeah, Lillard's going to be a guy who'll probably be in the MVP conversation again. 30 points a game, I'm sure. He had one of the best games I've ever watched probably last year. I think it was
in the Denver
one of the
series.
playoff games. Yeah,
It was
oh
in
my
the Denver
goodness.
series. I know. Yeah, it was that I think they went double overtime and
and he had those two long threes, like hand right in his face. He couldn't even defend it any better. Hits him, tie the game both times.
Yeah,
He had like 12 threes that game or 11
he
threes or
was
something.
carrying them. That was when it was clear like he needs more help. I mean,
yeah,
I think McCollum was a little bit banged up, but you would still like to see a little bit more out of him in that game. I do like what they did on the bench. I guess outside of like Dennis Smith Jr., they take a flyer on him. I still believe, as weird as that is, I still think he could be something. He had a phenomenal rookie year. It wasn't an efficient rookie year, but that Dallas team was just terrible that he was on that year. He kind of had to do the lion's share of the scoring for them his rookie season. And then they draft Doncic, and he's just kind of odd man out. And he's just kind of bounced around on teams that are haven't really given him opportunities or aren't great fits. He's had some injury issues. He could be something. They also bring in Tony Snell, a good 3-and-D guy, and Larry Nance, who's an excellent defender, rebounder, hustle guy. With defense sorely needed, Snell and Nance are good additions to address those concerns. Also, Cody Zeller is here now. Haven't really watched a lot of Cody Zeller over the last few years. I guess he could. Does he play defense? I feel like he does.
He can be a spark sometimes. I think I probably caught one or two Hornets games last year, so I couldn't really tell you a bunch about him, but he had some highlights.
I feel like he's hurt a lot too. They finally give up on Zach Collins. And I feel like for Lillard, he's a guy who could potentially be on the move. He says he's happy for now, but kind of like the Beals situation, we just don't know for how long. They've been kind of liberal trading draft picks during the Lillard era. They've been really willing to give up first round picks. But at the same time, when they draft a guy like Anthony Simons, who's probably going to have a big role for them this year, or Zach Collins, there for a while, the league was really high on those guys and was willing to discuss potential all-star type caliber players with those two as like the feature pieces of the package. And Portland was unwilling to move off of those guys. Now Zach Collins walks and Anthony Simons probably isn't far behind. I think not trading them or not holding on to draft picks, like they've kind of done the worst of both with kind of prospects and draft picks where they've kind of been inconsistent in their philosophy. I think that's really what's hurt them. All righty. And do you want to talk about definitely a steep drop off in terms of the quality of teams in the Northwest Division kind of going forward? One of my least favorite teams in the league, not due into any part to the players they have on their team, just the decisions they find themselves making, the Minnesota Timberwolves.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really hate their lineup as much as I do some other teams. I mean, I put Edwards in my top 50, so I have 2 top 50 guys in there. I mean, I don't see a lot happening for them. They didn't really improve in terms of their lineup. I don't think Pat Bev is so old at this point. I don't see him making a huge difference on the court for them. 34 and a half. It's honestly a tough one. I have him as a 12 seed, so I have 3 teams below him, so that could honestly be an over, but I don't know how close that is.
I can't possibly see a way this team, it moved up to 35 and a half, so they have to be 36 and 46 on the year.
Yeah, that's tough.
I do not see a world where this team gets to nearly 40 wins. I think that's an easy under. I think that would be a lock for me. I would almost be willing to bet the mortgage payment on them finishing under this year. Yeah, they really bring in, I guess you can count Taurean Prince as an addition. I don't know if this was a playoff bound team, I would feel good about a Taurean Prince addition, but their starting lineup is a little bit weak and they don't really have a lot coming off the bench either. I mean, they have Carl Anthony Towns. He's another guy who could potentially be on the move. I can't imagine he's happy there. They just fired their GM like a couple weeks ago due to his character issues. How long before Patrick Beverly is just screaming at everyone because of effort and not playing defense?
He's probably already gotten after Towns for that.
I don't feel like, because they basically swap him in for Rubio. I feel like Rubio was a much better fit with this group than Patrick Beverly. There's not a lot of like playmaking, set the table guys here. Like Beverly, the less he has the ball, kind of the better. Like whatever you get from him offensively, be it spot up shooting, is kind of just a blessing. Like you're not counting on anything from him. D'Lo, not really much of a passer, and neither is Edwards. I do like Jalen McDaniels as like a defensive piece for them. Like he seems like he's a versatile defender. I don't know. He could continue improving. I don't think this team sniffs the playoffs or play in. I don't know what their plan is either. I guess continue to just suck and get draft picks, but I can't imagine Carl Anthony Towns is going to be game for that for much longer if even he makes it through the year.
I don't know how long he has on contract there, but I could see him requesting a trade anytime soon.
I think 3-ish years. I know he's got quite a few years left. It would take a trade demand for him to move. And the New York Knicks are honestly in a really great position to trade for some of these guys, these disgruntled stars. So I don't know if we could see him on the move to the Big Apple. I still think this is an under. I don't think there's any chance that they made 36 wins. It doesn't get any better, unfortunately, with the Oklahoma City Thunder. They were one of the worst teams in the league last year. That will continue to be the case this year. They were actively like trying to be bad last season. They basically told Al Horford to go home because he was helping them win too many games. And same with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who we both had, I think, in the 30-ish range for top players in the league. I think he's probably on the move. I don't think he's on their timetable. They just signed him to a big extension, 5 years of 172. They're projected at 23.5 wins, so 24-58. I guess I have the over. I don't know. I don't know. Yeah, I have no idea.
I don't think they're worse than Orlando, but I don't know. They're definitely the worst team in the conference, and I don't see anyone on this team who's really going to win you a game. Maybe you get stuck in the Dort chamber, but like, yeah, Shai, I feel so bad for him out there.
You're not a Poku fan?
I'm not a Poku fan, no.
Yeah, I think he's a fun kind of meme for Oklahoma City fans while they go through this transition period. I mean, they've got so many draft picks over the next, I don't know, 6 years. Like they're not even going to be able to roster all of the guys that they could potentially pick. What they're kind of hoping for is for a team to kind of get out to a slow start who has some playoff aspirations and maybe lucks into a top pick. And then they can just kind of cash in some of these draft assets to sneak into the, get another top draft pick. But yeah, Shai is kind of ready to, by the time this team is a winning roster, he's going to be well into his prime, kind of look probably, I mean, what are they, 4 or 5 years away from really being competitive?
Yeah, I think some of the draft picks they just got are guys in like 7th and 8th grade, so they're kind of a ways out from success.
Exactly. Yeah. So Shai is, I mean, he's still young, but by the time they're like cashing in these assets and turning into a competitive team, he's going to be late 20s or possibly into his 30s if things go really badly for them. I think they probably just need to cash in on him at some point and I don't know, I guess get more draft picks, but I think they need to start trying to trade for some maybe younger players rather than just draft picks. But yeah, 23.5. I have the over. I could see them getting 26 wins. I think they're a 20-win team. I don't think they have an all-star caliber guy in Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Derek Favors is pretty good. Lou Dort is pretty good. It's a lot better than what Orlando is rocking for their team. And so I don't know. I guess I have the over. It sounds like you have the under.
I don't feel strongly about over or under. They're the last team in the West for me.
Yeah,
I think
they
they're
they
better
were
than Orlando.
they were for me too.
Yeah, 23, 24. I don't see them getting more than 27 wins at the most. So
No, they're not. They're
close.
not. They're not flirting with the 30 wins. And even if they are winning some games, you can count on Sam Presti to kind of shut the guys down
Shut them down.
who are helping them win.
Yeah.
All righty, we're going to kick it off in the Southwest Division here. The Dallas Mavericks, they kind of disappointed a little bit last year. I felt like they got off to a slow start. They had some injuries. Doncic kind of came in out of shape. Porzingis was still banged up from his bubble injury. The season just started before anyone was ready, and Doncic coming in out of shape was a result of that. They did lock up Doncic 5 years, 207. And they also bring back Tim Hardaway Jr., 4 years, 75. I thought that was a pretty decent deal. They're projected 48 and a half wins, so 49 and 33 for the season. I'm taking the under.
Me too.
When you look at the teams that are above them, like when we go through at the end, the teams that are above them are clearly better. Now, the case for them finishing over, and they basically have to be a 50-win team for that to happen, is that Kristaps Porzingis gets back to the way he was in the bubble, because he looked pretty good for those couple of games that he was healthy in the bubble. They also could try to make a move for Kyrie. We're going to talk about that a little bit later, but the Nets are in a situation where I feel like personally they're going to have to trade Kyrie. And Porzingis has a salary that will make that a little bit easier. It's a matter of if the Nets are even interested in that. But the Porzingis contract, they can turn that into something. I like what they did in the offseason. They bring in Reggie Bullock. He's a good 3-and-D player. But other than that, they're pretty much running it back, and it's just going to kind of have to be the Doncic show. They do hire Jason Kidd. Do you like Jason Kidd as a potential head coach again?
I don't know. The stint with Milwaukee kind of threw me off, but maybe he learned some things under LeBron's coaching wingspan. So maybe I like to pick up with Reggie Bullock. I've always thought he's a pretty good shooter to have, and it definitely adds to their lineup and what Luka can have as options. I don't see him really going that high in the Western Conference, though. It's part of the reason I'm not taking him as MVP, just because I don't think he'll have the team record to do it.
Yeah, I ended up backing off from him as MVP. That was kind of my initial thought, but I have them as the 7th seed. The issues with them last year, and some people disagree, but like Doncic has to do everything for them offensively. And by the fourth quarter, particularly in playoff games, he's just gassed. He's out of steam. And they didn't really bring in a secondary playmaker or anyone who can go out and get a basket kind of on their own to kind of alleviate some of that pressure. Whenever they put him on the bench in the playoffs, they're just dead in the water, like particularly against a good defensive team like the Clippers, who they've ran into the last 2 years. They don't really have a lot. Role player wise, I like Jalen Brunson. I like Bullock. I like Sterling Brown, who they just brought in. Finney Smith is pretty decent, and I actually like Maxi Kleba. So I like the role guys. I just don't think they have enough firepower to really compete at the top of the West.
I will say this might be the tallest list of centers I've ever seen in a lineup.
Oh, I know. They bring
KP 7'3", Moses Brown 7'2", Boban 7'5". I think Willie's a 7-footer.
Yeah. I've been kind of disappointed in Willie. Like when he came out of Kentucky, it looked like he was going to be an awesome defensive player. And he really hasn't been. Like he's really been like kind of average at best on defense, which is really surprising. That was supposed to be the thing that he was supposed to be really good at.
He was terrifying in Kentucky. I think he's had a couple good, spurts of play last couple of seasons, but I mean, he'll probably be the second or third guy in terms of their centers.
I think we'll be talking about this team a little bit later, but I think being drafted by the Kings has not really done anyone any favors over the years.
Yeah.
And I think pairing him with DeMarcus Cousins was just a weird fit to begin with. It probably stunted his development a little bit. I don't love their center options. Even Porzingis is kind of a weird center, but he has to play center. Like he just has to. Defensively, you would like for him to be better. But if they did decide to trade Porzingis, uh, I guess you start Cauley Stein and hope Moses Brown is like really good.
I was hoping Moses Brown would stick around in Boston. Honestly, I don't know if he's starting yet, but I think you probably go Willie. I don't think anyone's going to put Boban in the starting lineup, unfortunately.
Oh, they did in the playoffs. They went with that weird 2-3 zone, Boban at the center, Porzingis at the 4, and I like when teams do that. Just throw something weird out there in the playoffs and see if it sticks. It kind of worked a little bit, but I don't know. I feel like if you have Porzingis, like he just has to figure it out at the center, or
Yeah.
you have to trade him. Unfortunately, he's got one of the least tradable contracts in the league right now, being an injury prone center who kind of doesn't really do any of the things that you want. So I think if it were me, I would really do everything I can to make him look really good early in the season and try to ship him off when his trade value is high. Um, yeah, I think I think they can survive at center with what they've got. I don't love it, but like if I have to sacrifice Porzingis to bring in like a secondary playmaker scorer, like I'm perfectly willing to do that.
Yeah, they have the depth to do it. For them to be a top 5 team, I think Luka's got to have at least, 35 a game and very conditioned to even last that long.
Yeah. Unfortunately, they've already got 138 on the books for next year. So they're flirting with the luxury tax range, and they've got Finney Smith and Brunson to resign. So they're not going to get anybody through free agency. It's going to have to be through some creative trades or maybe a buyout guy. Dragic is, if he gets bought out, I have to feel like with the Doncic connection, that's where he ends up, which would be a godsend for this team. So did you have them over or under 48
Probably
and a half?
under.
Under.
I'm near
Yeah.
under. I have them at 7 also, so
Yeah.
they got to be an under.
Yeah. All righty. Memphis Grizzlies. Yeah, they made some noise in the playoffs to some degree. Do you want to talk about their season a little bit?
It was definitely impressive and better than I expected it to be. They surprised everyone, I think, by making it through the play-in and then taking a game off the Jazz. I think they won game 1, and then the next 4 went the other way. But definitely a good sight for the future. They just signed Jaren Jackson to the 4-year, I think 95 million.
4 years, 105.
Oh, 105. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they had a little bit of turnover this offseason. I think they were that team who made trades and then recycled the trades almost immediately a couple of times. I think that was part of the Pat Bev deal. I don't have them making the playoffs this year. I have them at the 9 seed, so just missing it. I don't know. It could go either way though.
They're projected at a 42-40 record. Do you have them over or under 48 and a half? I mean, I'm sorry, 41 and a half.
41. I'd probably have to put them right under just because I have them missing the playoffs. I don't know if a 40-win team is going to, below 40 team is going to make the playoffs in the West.
Yeah, I have them over. I mean, they were on pace for 43 last year. I think Ja Morant could take a huge step up for them this year, which would make them a much better team. All things similar. If Morant basically stays stagnant, which he hasn't yet so far in his career, then yeah, I think it's an easy under. I don't think they probably make it to the 500 mark, but I could see him taking a big jump forward. Yeah, they had a busy offseason. This is I tried to keep track of all the trades and all the moving pieces. But yeah, they had Eric Bledsoe for a minute, which we'll talk about him on the Clippers in a little bit and his fit on the Pelicans in prior years. But they move up in the draft and they take back Steven Adams and Eric Bledsoe. Then they end up trading Bledsoe. How do you feel about Steven Adams versus Jonas Valanciunas? Because that's really the only big change from their lineup this year to last year.
They're pretty similar. I think I like Jonas a little bit better at this stage in both of their careers, but I don't think it's going to be a huge difference maker. I mean, Steven Adams is a guy who'll get you any rebound that's up there, and he'll set the hardest screens out there and then get a couple buckets.
I think it's okay. I like Valanciunas a lot more than Adams, just in a
Yeah.
vacuum. But for fit wise on this team, I really don't mind Adams out there. Valanciunas isn't the defender that Adams is, so that'll help them a bit. They've got Dylan Brooks, who is he at least thinks he's good at defense. I don't. I'm jury's still out on whether he is, but he plays like he's good at defense, so that's fun. And they did go on a tear. I mean, they had an awesome game against the Warriors to knock them out in the play-in game. They took one off the Jazz. They could be a team to make a huge step forward. They've got a ton of young guys. I mean, Brooks is still young. Morant, Jaren Jackson wasn't healthy. He came back really late in the season for them last year. If he's healthy and all in this year, that could be a huge upgrade to them. Also, Brandon Clark.
Yeah.
I really like him.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of him too.
I like what they've been doing just as a team. I mean, they've basically been happy to, kind of make trades to alleviate salary issues for other teams to get picks back. And they're still a competitive team. Do you still, they did get Jarrett Culver. He hasn't done anything in the league. Do you think maybe with a fresh change of scenery, he could give them something?
Yeah, it's definitely possible. Sometimes that's all it takes for some guys. I think Memphis has done a good job of kind of establishing who they want to be and who they want their team to be built around through the draft, and then kind of just fill in the pieces from there.
They're building they're building a really tough, gritty team, kind of like the grit and grind era. They're going to play a lot differently with Morant at the helm, but they also get Chris Dunn, who I still believe in. He's a phenomenal defensive guard. They're going to be a tough team to play against, and especially in like a playoff setting. They're just not fun. They just won't be fun to play. You're not going to get any easy baskets against this group. They also draft Zaire Williams, who is I don't really know a ton about. I know he was at Stanford and kind of disappointed while he was there, but he's a versatile wing, or at least could be. He might be a decent shooter one day. I don't think he plays a lot coming out of the gate for this group. I mean, they've got Kyle Anderson, Desmond Bain, and Brandon Clark to kind of all do the same thing that he does. Yeah, I think they're positioned really well to be kind of competitive for the future. They only have 75 million committed next season. They're not going to be in the running for like a star player like a Bradley Beal or anything free agent wise, barring some crazy change to how those players have behaved in the past. But they could bring in a couple of veterans if they have a big year, and we could be talking about them, making deeper runs into the playoffs after this season.
Do you have them in the playoffs this year?
No, I mean, I have them as the 8, but I have them losing their play-in game. So no, I don't have them in the actual playoffs, but I think they go over 41.5. The West is a lot more, we talked about the East last week. The East is really top heavy. There's really like 1 through 6 in the West could be, anybody's. Yeah. And then even the next tier of teams are still, competitive and could be in the mix. So I don't know.
The whole play-in is going to be pretty competitive, 7 through 10.
I think the
1 through
West
6 is kind of a step ahead.
I think the West is going to be really competitive. I mean, there are really only 3 teams, kind of like the East, that I just think are completely out of the mix for that. The Wolves, the Thunder, and the next team we're talking about, the Rockets. The Rockets, they were, competing for years with the James Harden group. He finally demanded a trade and really just put them in a corner with that. He was barely playing at all for them, like just effort wise. I mean, he was on the court, but you could tell he was just waiting to get shipped out. I don't think they expected that. So they kind of had to hit the panic button on a trade. They got a bunch of draft picks and not much else. I would say so far under the new ownership, I think that was the new owner's first year, maybe, or second year. Yeah. I think it's been a complete disaster for them. Because
Morey didn't really leave him in a good spot to begin with.
No, he didn't. But I think the Russell Westbrook trade, so I guess the new owner's been there for a little bit. I think that was a demand from maybe the new owner to make a big splash. I don't think that did them any favors. But yeah, they had a chance even with that Nets trade. They could have maybe traded for Simmons. I get why they didn't want to do that with the former GM of the Rockets now being in Philly, Daryl Morey. So they trade Brooklyn. They could have gotten back Karis LeVert. Instead, they get back Oladipo, who they then later that season, they can't sign him to an extension because he doesn't want to stick around for this dumpster fire. So they end up trading him to the Heat for 2 expiring contracts and 2 pick swaps over the next 2 years, which they have zero chance of being better than the Heat in either of these next 2 seasons. They basically just gave the Heat Victor Oladipo for nothing. They're projected at 26.5 wins, so 27-55. No chance. There's
Really,
no.
I'm going over.
You're going over.
Close to 30.
Wow.
I don't hate this team. There's another team that I don't like as much as them. I think Wall kind of showed us that he's not out of the league yet. Last year, he had a really impressive season, I thought. I'm a KPJ fan. I think he's going to really show Cleveland that they messed up with him. Jalen Green's going to have a pretty big season too, so I think they at least are a 13 seed.
They have some good pieces. I will say that, but they're so young. I can't imagine Christian Wood makes it through the year with them because he's on a really affordable contract. I could see them shipping him off.
An absolute steal for them in terms of contract.
I know.
I cannot believe when Boston didn't even make an offer at him and Houston signs him for that.
I couldn't believe Detroit didn't match.
Yeah,
that was crazy. Kevin Porter Jr., who they also got for free. So I guess it hasn't been a complete disaster. They make the Christian Wood signing, which was good, and they get Kevin Porter Jr. for nothing. Yeah, the Cleveland, that was just a complete disaster for them. I think he was not getting along with the coach, and I think there may have been some. I don't remember the story. Do you remember what happened?
I think a lot of the reports where he was like childish in the locker room or had an ego issue or something, and he just didn't really get along with the coaching and the players. So I think they got him for a 2nd-round pick, which I think is going to turn out to be a total steal for Houston.
Oh yeah, he's a good player. And I don't think it's over for John Wall either. I don't think he could get traded this year. I mean,
no, not with that contract.
I guess if Dallas got really desperate, I think you could maybe make the numbers work to get Wall to Dallas, but I think
he's the 2nd highest paid player in the league, which is insane.
I know, and he's got 1 more year at 47 million or something. I can't see Dallas signing up for that. I guess if they really hit the panic button on the Porzingis thing, I think Houston would be willing to take a flyer on Porzingis and hope that works out because they're years away from being a playoff team again. Yeah, Jalen Green they get with the 2nd overall pick. He's a scorer. He's just going to score. And I think he's going to do really well at this level. The top 3 in this last year's draft is just, I think they're all, I would not be surprised if all of them are future All-Stars. I mean,
Yeah. I think Green got kind of drafted to a perfect situation where he has really no option but to produce. Same with Cunningham. They're in roles where they can be a top 1-2 guy on their team every night. So they're going to really have some good production.
Yeah. Tice is another guy I could see on the move. They signed him, but Alfred Şengün, I'm sure I butchered that. I think it's Şengün. He won MVP of the Turkish League, which, while it's not the best league outside of the NBA, it's thought of as a really, it's a really highly regarded professional basketball league. As a 19-year-old to win the MVP of that league, kind of like Doncic did. Except Doncic was in a much better league. But if we look at even how LaMelo Ball did, he didn't really light the world on fire in that Australian professional league he was in. Şengün did light the world on fire in a much better league. So I could see him being really underrated, kind of coming into this season. He has some playmaking stuff like Porzingis. They also draft Garaba. He made some noise on the Spanish national team during the past Olympics. He seems like he's going to be a pretty decent player. For the Şengün Garaba combo, one of them is going to have to learn how to shoot threes. They're both kind of inconsistent right now, to you put it mildly. But if one of them does, I think that's a really good, post tandem, or it could be. I like the pieces that they have. I just don't think there's any chance that they hit nearly 30 wins. I'm taking the under. I think they're closer to 20 than 30, but especially
so you have them at 14.
Yeah, yeah, I think
Okay.
so. Let me double check. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. The Thunder are just it's going to be tough.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
doesn't get
I
worse than
have
that.
them. I have them at 14. I like what they have a little bit more. Their team makes some sense too. I mean, Eric Gordon is another guy that they can trade, so they have some assets that they can cash in. Or if their things are going really well, they've got some NBA players on this team. All righty, and yeah, do you want to kick us off with the Spurs? I don't really have a ton to say about them.
Yeah, so this is the team that I have below Houston. I think this roster is atrocious. I think it's definitely worse than Houston. The only thing that's better is probably their coaching. Um, I mean, they've just kind of been on the decline the last couple of years. At 28 wins, I don't know. I'd probably take the under there. They weren't really anything last year, and their lineup for the most part hasn't changed much. I guess Thad Young and Doug McDermott add some type of depth to them, but I mean, their lineup's not that great. I don't see anyone who's really standing out.
I'm taking the over. I think this is an easy over for me. Um, they were on pace for 38 and 44 last year. Granted, they lose DeMar DeRozan, who's a big loss, but they've got Keldon Johnson, who's on a lot of people's short list for most improved. I actually don't hate their roster as much as you do, it sounds like. Yeah, there's not a lot to get like excited about, but it's well put together. Like DeJounte Murray and Derek White are like a NBA backcourt. Um, they could trade one of them if they really want to hit the reset button, but I think you could survive with that um, as a somewhat competitive team. I don't think they're flirting with the playoffs at all, but I think they're going to be a decent team, respectable. I mean, I like all of their players. Like they just don't have a star wow guy. They take a flyer on Zach Collins. Maybe he can stay healthy finally. I doubt it, but maybe he can, and he could be good for them. But Thad Young, Al-Farouq Amino, Doug McDermott, Keldon Johnson as your wing core, that's pretty good. Maybe Devin Vassell does something for them. I don't hate it. The one thing I did not like, and I think this Spurs thing is going to come to an end pretty soon with Buford and Popovich. They took Josh Primo at 12. I couldn't find a mock draft going back that had him above 27. Most had him going in the second round. I thought that was a complete reach. I have no idea what they were thinking with that.
Yeah, it's hard to tell sometimes. I think in terms of the Pop relationship coming to an end, I saw a couple days ago they were preparing within the next 1 to 2 years to get a new coach in there. Which is, I mean, people have been expecting that for probably the last 5 years since Duncan left. So yeah, I mean, once you saw him get on the decline a couple years ago, it kind of makes sense. I like DeJounte Murray a lot, but as your best player, I'm not really thinking your team's going to be that great. I like Lonnie Walker as well. I think their wing core is pretty good. Just in terms of who's ahead of them, I don't see him doing much.
So do you feel like, I don't know, who are the best? I guess we could take the top three for just because I don't know between Derek White and Keldon Johnson, who's actually going to be better this year. I would say lean towards Keldon Johnson a little bit. So you feel like DeJounte Murray, it's some Derek White or Keldon Johnson combo is worse than Jalen Green and Kevin Porter?
I don't even know who I'd put as the Rockets' second best player, but yeah, I do like their lineup
I guess
better.
it would be Christian Wood probably. So you like the
Yeah,
Green? You think Green will be better? Green and some combo of whoever else you want on Houston. Well, because I don't think it's even if you want to say that, which I don't know that I agree. I still think like it's close, and then I think the rest of these guys on San Antonio are much better than the other guys on Houston. Like
they definitely have the experience.
they have the depth. They have more depth. That's the only reason I would say San Antonio is finishing over Houston. I think I had San Antonio. Yeah, I had them at 12 over Minnesota.
Yeah, and these over unders are within a point of each other, and I think that's probably how close it's going to be within a game or two.
Yeah,
at the bottom of the West.
It could be. San Antonio might still be trying to compete, so maybe they cash in some of these young assets. I just thought the Primo thing, I have to imagine they're going to be getting a new GM too. I don't think Buford has really done much for them over the past few years. The Knicks were looking to trade up in the draft, and they were picking in the early 20s, maybe at 19. I can't remember off the top of my head. And they were desperate to move up in that draft. If you're San Antonio, why don't you trade down? Nobody's interested in Primo, clearly, that high. He was like a 4 or 5 point a game scorer in college, and he was horribly inefficient on Alabama. Like I don't he was the youngest player in the draft. That's really the only selling point that I could find for him. So maybe you feel like you saw some potential and he can learn, but getting him at 12, I thought was a stretch. I know Moses Moody went under him, and there were some other guys that you definitely would have probably rather had.
Yeah, I don't even remember at this point, but I'm sure there are.
I think Book Knight was selected one pick ahead of him.
He went 11th, yeah.
Yeah. And then, I just think you could have found a better player at 12, or you could have traded down if you really felt that strongly about Primo and gotten some more back. I thought that was, not great. But yeah, I have the over. I think they're in the 30 wins, low 30s. I mean, I don't feel super confidently about it. I feel more confident about the Houston under than I do that. But all right. And the Pelicans, another disappointing year for them last year. It's been kind of a train wreck during the Zion era. This will be his third coach in as many seasons. Everything has been kind of set up for them to be in these play-in tournaments. And I feel like that's part of the reason why the league instituted them was they knew that was the only way they were getting Zion in the playoffs.
Too. Yeah, that's what it was screaming when they first mentioned it, but
it
didn't happen. So
yeah, I know. Yeah. And then, last year they were under Stan Van Gundy, who I have very few nice things to say about as an NBA coach at any point in his career. I feel like that was 5 years, probably too late to sign him as an NBA coach. I mean, he was in Detroit, which was a complete disaster, and he took a couple of years off. The Orlando situation wasn't much better while he was there. I mean, I guess they made a finals under him, but I think the way that team kind of just fell apart was just not a good look. This year they kind of turned over the roster a little bit. I guess we could start with their over under. They're at 38.5 wins, 39-43. I'm taking the under.
Yeah. I have them at 11, and I don't think they're getting close to 40 wins either. So I think that's definitely a good shot.
No, I just kind of, I want to talk about David Griffin. He's regarded as a really good GM in the league, at least by the media. Are we sure that's the case?
Yeah, I mean, he kind of screwed over AD. He did get Brandon Ingram out of it. I mean, anyone can be good when they have the number 1 pick in the Zion draft, and I don't know if I agree with taking Graham over Lonzo Ball, but yeah, I'm not thrilling about David Griffin.
I don't think he did that. So he's kind of known for the Cleveland thing. He came in at the same year LeBron came in. Did he do that great of a job there? Am I misremembering? Because
LeBron was the GM of that team.
Yeah, and LeBron fell in his lap, like basically, like he just signs on and just happens to sign LeBron. They have the number 1 pick, which they turned into Kevin Love, so that was an easy thing to do. Yeah, and
which wasn't happening unless LeBron wouldn't sign unless he did that, which is probably what led to that.
Right, and at least he wasn't responsible for taking Anthony Bennett, number 1. But then after that, like, they tried to trade Kyrie for like some combination of Eric Bledsoe and Paul George, or there's some weird trade with that, and they piss off Kyrie. He demands a trade, and they get basically nothing back in that trade. They get injured Isaiah Thomas, Jay Crowder, who shockingly did nothing for them, which is crazy to me given how good he is now. And he was good before he got to Cleveland. He just did nothing in Cleveland. It was so weird.
Yeah. He's always been solid. He really came out in Miami, though. I think that was really the coming out party. And whenever he left for Phoenix, I thought that was such a steal for them.
He was good for you guys in Boston earlier in his career. And people forget he was with Dallas for a little bit. I think Rondo and Monte Ellis were like the core of that team, and he was good for them. But yeah, then they ship off Isaiah Thomas. They hit the panic button on that and get back Jordan Clarkson and Nance. And it just I just wasn't impressed with anything that he did. He comes into this Pelicans situation. in hindsight, he really didn't get much back for Anthony Davis. I guess Brandon Ingram as an all-star player, I guess you could be happy with that. But they let Lonzo Ball walk. They get the number 4 pick in the Zion draft, which they could have taken Tyler Hero if they were feeling really good about that. They could have taken DeAndre Hunter. Like there were a lot of good players, but they trade back, get Nickeil Alexander Walker, who I like okay, but I'm not like super excited about it. They let Lonzo Ball walk. And yeah, here we are, third coach in 3 years. They trade Drew Holiday for basically nothing last offseason. A bunch of pick swaps and picks from Milwaukee, which are going to be worthless because Giannis is still there. They took a gamble on that. It didn't pay off. They should have just kept Drew Holiday. They really should have.
Yeah, they basically just turned him into Valanciunas, which hindsight doesn't look great.
No, it like okay, so last year they were like, "Hey, we're gonna hit the reset button. We're trading Drew Holiday. We're gonna rebuild. We want picks and stuff back." So they take back Eric Bledsoe's horrible contract and sign Steven Adams, which was weird with Zion Williamson on the team. It seems like you wouldn't want anyone in his way. Whatever. They sign him. So it doesn't work out. And now here we are a year later, and they're like, no, we have to clear up cap space. We want to sign Kyle Lowry. So they end up trading draft picks to get out of the Eric Bledsoe contract that they take on and get back Valanciunas. And I still don't think that's a good fit with Zion. I like Valanciunas, but I don't think that works either.
Yeah, they're pretty similar in terms of what they're going to do and how they're going to space the court. So, I mean, at least Zion can kind of navigate the court more athletically and gracefully, but it is kind of a logjam. I think Jackson Hayes is going to end up being a pretty good center for them if he gets the playing time.
I don't think he will. I think they're going to play Valanciunas because I think David Griffin is thinking this team can win now, and I just don't see it.
Yeah, they're definitely not a win now team.
Devontae Graham, I thought they paid way too much. They give him for 4 years, 47, which they could have just kept Lonzo Ball. They also gave up a first-round pick to do that, to bring in Devontae Graham. I was looking at the comparison between him and Kendrick Nunn because I was curious. They're basically the same numbers, same 3-point percentage, same, they're really similar players. The Lakers got him for 2 years, 10 million. Not saying that the Pelicans could have done that, but probably for 2 years, 20. The only thing is Kendrick Nunn is just like way more efficient than Devontae Graham. So I don't understand that signing.
Yeah, Nunn really had a pretty awesome start to his career. He kind of got shadowed once Hero and Duncan Robinson started shining too, but I think the Lakers got a steal in him, especially for what they're paying. I think it adds to them having one of the deepest rosters in the league. So
he was second in Rookie of the Year voting.
Yeah.
The Zion year, was that it?
Yeah.
Yeah. He just kind of he couldn't find playing time. It was tough with Dragic, Duncan Robinson, Tyler Hero as like a guard core. Like it was just tough to find room for a fourth guy. I think that would have been a better pickup than Devontae Graham. I know Devontae doesn't play any defense. Kendrick Nunn tries defensively. He's 6'2", so he can only do so much, but he's at least like competing on that end. I guess their only hope is that Brandon Ingram takes a huge leap forward, but Zion is already unhappy here. So how much longer is this Zion and New Orleans thing gonna work?
I think he was unhappy the second the Knicks lost the lottery that year. I think he figured out he was either going to Memphis or New Orleans, and he was probably screwed either way.
One thing too that makes this even more of a disaster is the owners are looking to sell the team. I have to imagine this is a relocation team if it gets sold. I can't see them staying in New Orleans. I bet this thing goes to Seattle or Vegas.
Yeah, unfortunately, those are probably the top two candidates. I think Vegas would probably win that bid, and just because of how successful you've seen the teams that moved there be. But I know everyone in the league wants Seattle to have a team too.
We can save the expansion stuff for another episode because I think the league is probably heading in that direction. But yeah, this team could be on the move. Zion's probably on the move. If I were a Pelicans fan, which there probably aren't too many out there, maybe there are because Zion is there, but too many diehard Pelicans fans. This is a pretty bleak looking situation. They bring in Tomas Satoransky. Do you feel good about that?
He's all right off the
He's
bench. I mean,
fine.
I'm not upset about it.
Yeah, no, I'm not upset about it, but yeah, they didn't do enough. And just kind of the flip-flopping between philosophies of like rebuilding and now all of a sudden we're trying to be competitive. They should have just stuck with either being competitive or continued to blow it up. Like there is no reason to kind of switch back and forth because they're kind of ended up with the worst of both worlds. Now they don't have any valuable draft picks and assets, and they don't really have anything to show for it.
Yeah, maybe they're hoping they can get some sort of package out of Zion. I mean,
It
he's
would
probably
be
going to demand a trade
it would
at
be a
some point in the
monster.
next.
It would be
Yeah,
a monster package. All right, this group is up for extension next season. So it'll be
yeah.
interesting to see if he signs the extension. Zion's also hurt to start the year with no timetable for return with a fractured foot, which is concerning.
I think Zion probably will sign the extension. The thing that these players have been doing, and it probably is the safe choice in the long run, is just get the team super max that you can get, demand the trade, so you keep the salary and get out of there.
I think he'll be the first one we see to like sign the extension and immediately demand the trade.
Yeah.
And I like normally I'd be pretty against that, but given the situation he's been kind of put in, I don't feel bad for that.
I wouldn't blame him. Yeah.
All right, we're moving on to the final division, the Pacific Division. I guess we better start out with the Western Conference champs, the Phoenix Suns.
Yeah. I'm just glad we're out of the last division.
Yeah.
I think they got better in terms of the players are probably progressing, and JaVale McGee, like off the bench, like I don't think it's a terrible decision.
No,
It definitely adds to their center depth. So
I agree.
I have him being competitive again this year. I have him as the 2 seed. So 52 wins. I think they go over that.
I also have them over. I also had them as the 2 seed. I had New Orleans as the 11th seed. I don't know if we talked about that.
Me too.
Yeah, 52 and 30 for the season. I think they're going over. I mean, barring some catastrophic injuries, I think that's an easy over. I think even bringing in Elfrid Payton for like the third point guard on this team, I actually think that's great. I think he's still like a he's not going to be an all-star player or, I think if everyone's healthy, I doubt he even plays. But as like we're resting Chris Paul tonight, he's like a decent guy to bring off the bench. They also get Landry Shamet for, I think, like a second round pick or something.
I thought that was big.
That was a steal. Shamet. Yeah, that was a steal. He's a good 3-point shooter, plays some defense. If they can get anything from Jalen Smith this year, that will be great. Yeah, I actually think McGee is an upgrade on what they had. Saric isn't really like they had him as the backup center last season. I don't think he's really, well suited for that. Especially as like the defensive anchor, which is kind of what they needed him to be coming off the bench. McGee can, anchor a defense for 15 minutes, 20 minutes a game if you really need it. I think that was a huge pickup. And yeah, they're basically running it back. I guess, they could be a finals contender. Definitely. Monty Williams seems to be a really good coach. This is kind of their team moving forward, though, especially with the signing. They just re-signed today, Mikal Bridges for 4 years, $90 million. I would have felt really good if that was $80 million if I were them. $90 million, honestly, it's fine. I think we could be talking about him in the top 50 players next year.
I think he's a beast.
He's really good role player. Cam Johnson could continue to grow. The big question mark now looming over their head, given their history as a franchise, they did not re-sign DeAndre Ayton. He wanted a 5-year max. For what I saw today reported, Phoenix was unwilling to go over 3 years for him at the max.
I don't understand it.
I don't either. I was shocked.
That's beyond me. As some of the guys that are getting maxes out of their first 2 or 3 years, and they probably deserve it, but to say he doesn't is insane. I don't know what the problem is with committing to him for the long term.
Their owner, Steve Sarver. So during the Nash era, the 7 seconds era, they had Joe Johnson, who was in a similar situation, DeAndre Ayton. 23 years old, an all-star player. Actually was an all-star. I think DeAndre will be one this year. And they didn't re-sign him. He goes to Atlanta on a max contract, and that team never wins the title. He's a cheap owner. He was selling draft picks for years. He sold the Rondo draft pick to Boston, which is how he ended up in Boston. Yeah, he's just a cheap owner, and I think he just doesn't want to go way into the luxury tax like they'll have to keep this group together. They just doled out a bunch of money for Chris Paul, and they just doled out a bunch of money for Bridges, and I don't think he wants to pay him, and somebody will. He's an awesome center.
Yeah, I guess it's hard for a small market team to really want to open their pockets like that, but I think if you're choosing between Bridges and Ayton, I mean, I like both guys, but I would pay Ayton first every time.
I would too. Yeah, I think you just have to bite the bullet for a couple of years as an owner for a title contention run. And from a business perspective, it makes sense, right? If you're not really confident in Ayton, other teams will only be able to offer him 4 years on a contract and less money than what you're able to offer as the team that's re-signing him. So as he goes into restricted free agency and somebody offers him a 4-year max, you can match that and he has to come back. So right. If you're playing in a video game, it makes a lot of sense, but the only thing you're going to do is upset him and kind of rock the boat here heading into a potential, championship run. I just don't think you want any of that looming over your head as a team, especially all season. And yeah, I think he's an all-star. I think he could be an all-star center this year. I think he was one of the most valuable players in the playoffs. I would argue he's as valuable as anyone they have, be it Chris Paul or Booker, just because his skill set, what he brings to this team, they can't find that anywhere else. Booker and Paul can kind of duplicate each other's efforts. Nobody is doing what DeAndre Ayton does for this team.
Yeah, he really brought it out, especially on the pick and roll in the playoffs. He kind of dominated there. It makes me kind of wonder what the owner thinks about that playoff run. I know a lot of people thought it was a fluke because of injuries with their opponents. I guess he doesn't want to commit because he can't see a title run in the next couple of years. I don't know why else he wouldn't want to do that, but I mean, I still have him being competitive. Maybe he doesn't think they actually are, but I think that's pretty ridiculous.
He gave Davis trouble in the playoffs, hurt or not. He looked good against him, and yeah, he looked good against Jokic.
Yeah,
I mean, he looked good against Giannis in the first 2 games. He looked good throughout the whole playoffs, basically, until things kind of fell apart for Phoenix, and nobody looked good for them. Yeah, he might think it was a little bit of a fluke. I still think you got to run it back. I mean, and I think you spent a number 1 overall pick on Ayton. If Doncic wasn't out there just absolutely killing it, like they were a part of the same draft, we would be really I think you would be even happier with what you've gotten from DeAndre Ayton. Like, I don't think you could ask for much more given last season.
It's tough to be in the same draft class as Doncic and Trae Young. So I think with what he's doing, I think he's definitely one of the best players from that draft class. And
I don't think he's disappointed.
On the team. No, not at all.
No. Yeah.
He's been a double-double guy, I think, since his rookie year. So,
and he's turned into a really good defensive player. And kind of like we talked about earlier with Whiteside, he does all the little things too. All the little things that you need your center to do to help anchor the defense and make it easier on your guards, be it him running the floor and kind of sealing defenders off. Like, he does all of it. And it makes me mad that they didn't pay him, but if they don't, someone else will. I mean, it's that simple.
I got to hope Boston would pay him if he walks.
I have to imagine they would, but they're going to have to clear up some cap room to do it.
Yeah.
All righty. The Clippers. So the Clippers, they made a run last year, and unfortunately, kind of like we were talking about with Phoenix, maybe being fortunate with some injury breaks, they were unfortunate. They lost Kawhi Leonard in the Phoenix series in the conference finals. They may have moved on. I think they probably do with Kawhi healthy. But maybe they don't. He's hurt probably with the ACL for the entire season. He could come back, but knowing Kawhi Leonard, he probably isn't going to. They made a couple of additions here in the offseason, but mainly they're just bringing everybody back. They're projected 45.5 wins. So 46 and 36. I have the under.
Yeah,
I just
I'm
think
probably taking the under.
I I don't feel super strongly about it. I just think without Kawhi, Paul George as
Yeah,
your main guy, I think that's tough in the West.
yeah, I have him as the 6th seed. Um, it's definitely
How
without Kawhi is holding back. Yeah, I
you,
mean,
you had them as the six? They're gonna have to.
yeah,
They're gonna have to be an over for you at the sixth seed.
you think? I don't know. I didn't map it out in terms of the over under in my seating.
I didn't either, but I just think I don't think 46 wins get you a sixth seed in the West.
That's pretty crazy. I thought Paul George kind of showed himself that he can somewhat lead a team when Kawhi went down the playoffs. It was definitely a surprise because no one expected him to do that. I think if you're looking at this team 2 or 3 years ago, they're probably one of the best teams in the league. But
Wait, with just Paul George?
oh no, with Kawhi in the lineup too.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I think you're
Um,
talking about them for an easy finals contender
yeah,
if Kawhi is healthy.
yeah. I think he comes back. I think March or April, and it's really depending on what they're looking like as a team
I
if he actually
I
plays.
don't think he plays.
Yeah.
I don't think it even matters. I think they could be a number one seed, and I don't think he'll play.
If it was any other player, they
Yeah,
probably play, but it's Kawhi, so
yeah.
probably not.
We're talking about Jamal Murray with basically the same injury, and we're like, oh yeah, he's coming back. He's
Yeah.
just different. They re-signed Reggie Jackson, 2 years, 22. I think that's a steal. He played phenomenally in the playoffs for them. He looked
Yeah.
basically unguardable in ISO situations, which is not something I ever expected to say about him.
Yeah. I mean, they do have some decent players. I think Kennard's good. Terrence Mann showed to be kind of a beast.
They re-signed him as well, 2 years, 22 for Terrence Mann. Yeah, they've got a really kind of like what we talked about with Utah, where they don't have versatility. This team has a ton of versatility with their lineup. I actually they brought in Justice Winslow, who's another versatile defender. Maybe he can stay healthy, probably not. I liked him in Miami. I was sad to see him go, but given the finals run we went on with getting Iguodala and Crowder back in that deal, it was a no-brainer. Brandon Boston Jr., I don't know how much you know about him. He really had a disappointing year at Kentucky, but he was one of the most high-rated high schoolers going into last season. So
I watched more high school games of his than I did college.
yeah, I just watched some of the tape and I've heard what people say about him. Like ultra talented guy. He might surprise some people. I don't know. He may not be able to find the court on this team. It'll be tough. But if some guys are missing time, then that's great. They also bring in Eric Bledsoe, which I don't know. I don't really care. I don't think
Yeah.
he's really very good anymore. Maybe with like very low expectations for what he has to do for this group. Like good, he can be. I guess you could go Reggie Jackson, Bledsoe, Kawhi, Terrence Mann, Ibaka down the stretch of games. I don't know. Probably not
I like him better
Bledsoe.
than Pat Bev, but I mean he's not a huge upgrade.
No, not really. I like him a little bit more than Pat Bev. I probably like Pat
Okay.
Bev in the role they had him at more than I like Bledsoe in like a title contention on a title contender team. One thing I do want to mention, they re-signed Kawhi, which was a huge kind of question mark looming over their head this offseason. 4 years, 177. They had to re-sign him for the 4 years. But
Yeah.
I do have to ask, with his health concerns, could this be maybe not such a great thing that they re-signed him for the 4 years?
Maybe. I mean they're pretty stuck in terms of capital for the next year or two. 168 on their books next year doesn't leave a lot of flexibility for anything. And depending on what you get out of Kawhi, I mean, it could look really bad for the rest of your team because he's taken up like a third of your salary cap at that point.
Yeah. And Paul George will be the same. So you'll basically
Yeah.
have most of your money tied up in two guys. They'll be in luxury tax. Like Steve Ballmer will be paying luxury tax out of his ears for the next, I don't even know how many years. But I could see this thing completely falling apart. And they don't have their draft picks anymore. So like if this turns into a complete disaster, like it's going to be a Brooklyn Nets situation after the Garnett and Pierce group where there's just like nothing on the team and no hope of improving. I don't expect that to be the case, but Kawhi will be pretty old into the last few years of that deal. I mean, if he's not able to stay on the court, something happens to Paul George, whether he, demands a trade, which isn't all that unlikely with him, or he has similar issues. I don't know when his contract is up. I feel like it's coming up.
Yeah, it's got to be soon.
Yeah, it could be bad. Ty Lue is the coach. Did he change your mind at all with the playoff run last year? I thought he looked pretty good as a coach.
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, my whole perception of him in Cleveland wasn't great because we all knew who was running the team. So it was kind of at least good to see him, coach a team for himself, and they did pretty well. I think they were probably going to go to the finals if Kawhi didn't get hurt.
Yeah, they probably were, which is an improvement on what Doc Rivers was able to do with them, who's considered to be a better coach. I don't know that I agree. Yeah, I thought Ty Lue did a good job. I mean, particularly in the Utah series, we really saw, and you wouldn't have expected Quinn Snyder to get outcoached by Ty Lue at the time, but it really looked to be the case, especially with the Gobert thing. I mean, he really found a way to just make Gobert a huge weakness for Utah. Yeah, I think they'll still hang around. I had them as the 9th seed and sneaking in as the 8th person in the playoffs. I think Paul George, he showed in the playoffs that he can carry a team. He's also showed in prior years that he can't do that. So we'll see. We'll see which version we get of him. All righty. And this, I could not believe how much this roster turned over. The Los Angeles Lakers, they're basically an entirely new team. It doesn't feel like that, but like when you actually look at what they did, they are an entirely new team from last year. Last year they were, obviously coming off of the finals, coming off of their championship run, late run into the bubble. They struggled just like all the other teams who had late runs into the bubble. They had a first round exit to Phoenix. It was a tough 6 games. Davis was hurt, and LeBron just kind of folded. Like, not saying that that's a bad thing. He just saw that they didn't have the group that was going to be able to make a run at Phoenix, and it looked like he just kind of packed it in for the year without Davis. They are at 52.5 wins, so 53-29. I have them as the number 1 seed, so I'm obviously taking the over. I feel like this is an easy over.
Yeah, I went over and I have them at 1 too. So, I mean, their roster compared to last year, they were kind of in the same situation going into the offseason where they had so many, like 3 players tied up to most of their salary caps. They kind of had to build it out that way. But I think this year they did a much better job in terms of depth. I think this team is beyond deeper than last year. They have multiple scoring options off the bench now, which is nothing that they had last year.
Yeah. I think going into last year, most people thought that they were better than the championship team. I can't remember where I fell. I think I was kind of indifferent on that. We thought Schroeder was going to be more important for them than he was. And same with Montrezl Harrell. Marc Gasol gave them nothing. I mean, it really wasn't a great year. Obviously, I guess we should lead with the big trade they made. They basically traded all their role players that they had under contract and got Russell Westbrook back from the Wizards. Are you excited about the Westbrook LeBron combination? Do you think that's going to work?
Yeah, I think in theory, like, it should work. I think it takes LeBron off the ball. He can kind of work as like a cutter and more of like a behind the scenes guy, what is he, like 38 at this point? I mean, you don't want him to be running up and down the court 35, 40 minutes a night. I mean, he just came off his, I think, longest injury of his career last season. So I think it definitely takes pressure off of him. And then Monk, I think, adds a scoring option to the lineup as well. And I think their centers are definitely upgrades from Drummond and Gasol.
Yeah, I'm a little bit worried about the Westbrook thing, not in the regular season. I think this is going to be awesome in the regular season when the court's a little bit more open. You're able to get easier baskets. Also, like you said, it takes a ton of heat off LeBron. Like, they're very similar in terms of their play style, both ball dominant guys who are walking triple doubles. On nights, LeBron just doesn't really, wants to rest, be it sit out or just kind of mail it in for a game, which he is deserving of doing at this stage in his career. Westbrook can go out and win you a regular season game, no problem. Yeah, they bring in Malik Monk on a super affordable deal. I thought that was a steal. Kendrick Nunn, same thing, steal. They kind of brought back a few of the guys from the title run. They got Rajon Rondo back. Good playoff pickup for them. Dwight Howard is good depth at center. They really filled out this roster well. I don't know if you saw it today. They picked up Avery Bradley, which I thought was really going to be a really nice pickup for them. Interesting. And going forward, I just found this funny. This is actually the final year they're going to be paying Luol Deng.
Oh my goodness.
They're still paying him.
They've been paying him for 10 years. I
know. He's another like 5.4 million on their salary cap.
Wow.
Yeah, they got DeAndre Jordan. I guess DeAndre is starting at center.
Yeah, you probably start him. I think Dwight's probably better off coming off the bench. I think he actually kind of grew into that role pretty well, even in Philly a little bit.
Yeah, I think he's a really good option at center off the bench. I don't love DeAndre Jordan starting. Davis is my defensive player of the year. If I think the Lakers are going to be the 1 seed, he has to play like the defensive player of the year. Not a lot of defense on this team. They get Trevor Ariza and Carmelo Anthony, Kent Bazemore, re-sign Taylor Horton Tucker. So that's their wing core. But they've got tons of options. Like if things aren't working, like with Malik Monk, if he doesn't have it because he can be a little inconsistent. They got Wayne Ellington, who's a lights out 3-point shooter, not much else. Avery Bradley is an option. Kent Bazemore, I still think, is pretty good. I mean, they've got a full roster of guys who can contribute.
Yeah, I'm really excited about Melo being on the team. I thought in Portland he kind of revived.
He did.
I was never on the wagon that he was out of the league. I was so upset when he was going through that, and just to see him be an option again was incredible. And I think he kind of proved he can be a third option for Portland. So to see him on the bench for this team, I think they're really set up.
I couldn't believe that people were like, "Oh, he's out of the league." He was still like, even though the Thunder thing didn't work out, and then he was a bad fit for Houston. Even the Thunder thing, I was like, I can't believe nobody wants this guy. He can still get you buckets, and now he tries on defense because I think he knows he has to. Like with Portland, it speaks more to Portland defense than to Melo, but he was one of their best defenders, I thought, at least in come playoff time. He was really trying on that end.
I know he really likes Lillard, so I think he was probably a lot happier on that team than he had been in OKC and Houston. And he's obviously LeBron's best friend, so he's gonna love the situation here.
Yeah, the end of the New York thing was also not a good look for him, but his GM was basically just like disparaging him every day in public. So it's going to be, I think it's going to be a good year for them. I think they can weather some injuries should they have them. With an older team, you have to expect they do. I think Monk and Kendrick Nunn and Horton Tucker too, as young guys who could potentially step into like a more prominent role. I think regular season wise, they're going to be fine. I already know how this team's season ends. It's going to be just a couple of disastrous Russell Westbrook fourth quarters where he goes 0 for 8 with 5 turnovers, and LeBron is going to be making the J.R. Smith face. That's going to be ultimately how it ends for this group. But I think regular season wise, they're going to be really good, and it will be a completely new group again next year because they're already dipping into the luxury tax for next year, and LeBron, Davis, and Horton Tucker, and Russell Westbrook are the only guys they're going to have under contract. I'm assuming Russell Westbrook takes his $47 million player option. I can't imagine him turning that down.
Yeah, I'm sure he'll be on the team. I think Rondo is going to be a huge pickup for them. I was surprised that they lost him, and I was also surprised the role he played in the team that won the championship in terms of their playoff run with how smart he is and the leader that he is. I think he probably gets some big minutes in the playoffs again this year.
Also, for some reason against the Heat, he turned into like a lights out 3-point shooter, which was
I've never seen him
honestly
shoot like
the reason
before.
they won the series, which killed me inside. Especially after the Boston days where we just tortured him, put LeBron on him, and just had him have LeBron stand in the paint. So weird to see them on the same team. Weird to see Rondo in a Lakers jersey. Weird to see him shooting 3-pointers. But yeah, I guess during the regular season, I do worry about the DeAndre Dwight as your only center options.
Yeah, and Davis is terrified of playing center, so I feel like you can't really maneuver a great lineup around him at the 5 either.
No, I guess there'll probably be a trade for a disgruntled center, or you can always get DeMarcus Cousins. He's going to be available, I'm sure.
I'm surprised no one has signed him yet.
I can't believe nobody's taking a flyer on him. I
At
thought
least
even
for
with
a
the
spot,
Clippers, he looked pretty good.
Yeah.
All right, we're kind of getting down to a not as exciting team, but we're going to wrap it up after this team with a really fun team to talk about. We've got the Sacramento Kings here. I like talking about the Kings. I have a soft spot for them for whatever reason. Last year, another kind of subpar Luke Walton year. They're kind of just in purgatory right now, where they're kind of just finishing outside of playoff contention or play-in games, and not getting a top pick. And just not really going anywhere. I have to imagine this is Luke Walton's last year if this thing doesn't work out. I can't imagine. They've not been real patient with coaches in the past, which I think has been a downfall of them. They had Dave Yoiger, and it looked like it was going to be pretty good under him, and then they fired him after 1 year to get Luke Walton. And they've been really patient with Luke, but it's just not really happened for them. They're at 36.5 wins, 37-45 for the year. I got to check where I even have them in the standings. I'm actually taking the over. I think they're going to be. I think they're going to be a 40-win team.
I probably have to. I have them at 10, so I feel like you kind of got to hit over.
That's where I have them as well. Yeah.
We got to compare this list. I feel like we've had a lot of the same.
I think we do, which is crazy because I felt like going through the West, I'm like, well, I don't feel strongly about this placement versus this placement. They draft Davion Mitchell. They bring in Tristan Thompson and Alex Len. Other than that, they're really just running it back with this group. How did you feel about the Davion Mitchell draft pick?
I think it's good. It kind of builds out at least some depth on the team. I mean, Fox, I think, is going to take a huge step. I think he's super underrated. Halliburton had a good year last year, so I think Mitchell kind of brings a little bit more scoring to the table as well. And obviously got Buddy Hield.
I have to imagine Buddy Hield's probably on the move. Same with Marvin Bagley. They didn't re-sign Bagley. I don't think they're going to. So I have to imagine they're going to ship him off. I think it'll be some Buddy Hield, Marvin Bagley combo.
It's probably for the best that if they move on from Sacramento. I think at least for Bagley, his golden age is coming up. So why waste him in Sacramento any longer?
They're not using him in a way that is helpful to him. And I don't know what that way would be at this point. I feel like he had some playmaking stuff at Duke, and they don't really allow him to play make or like pass, be a fulcrum of the offense in Sacramento, nor should he be with De'Aaron Fox and Tyrese Halliburton. I just think it's a bad fit. He can't really play center, and this team kind of needs him to play center. I didn't love the Davion Mitchell pick. I'm not sold on him. I know he had a good summer league. I just worried about a 6 foot. What is he? 6 foot, 6'2"?
Yeah, he's pretty small.
He doesn't have a big wingspan, he hangs his hat on defense, which historically you have to have a plus wingspan, like wingspan over your height, to be a really good defender in the NBA. He doesn't have that. He's undersized as far as like being a defensive player. I don't know who they would have taken in that slot. I mean, Halliburton fell to them in the prior year's draft, which was a great pick. But I guess if they're able to hold on to Fox and Halliburton and your 3-guard lineup, or like your 3 guards that you rotate as Fox, Mitchell, and Halliburton, I feel really good about that. I think I like Rashawn Holmes. I think he's a really, solid center. If they can get anything out of Tristan Thompson, great. But I think Holmes is up there for most underrated guy in the league. What they really need is they just need another wing, another athletic wing who can, do some do some running, hit some threes. If they, or maybe not even hit some threes. If they somehow got Buddy Hield and Bagley shipped off to Philly for Ben Simmons, and all of a sudden they look pretty good, I think.
It would address the needing your postman to be a playmaker. It certainly does not address the 3-point shooting.
No, I think they've got enough 3-point shooting here. Fox is a good 3-point shooter. If Mitchell had a good year shooting threes at Baylor, we'll see if he can translate that to the NBA. I have some doubts, but if he does, Barnes is still a good 3-point shooter. I think that's a dangerous starting five if you're going Fox, Halliburton, Barnes, Simmons, and Holmes. I don't think they can make that trade. But if they get another wing player here, versatile wing to play alongside Barnes, I think they're a good team.
Yeah, they're definitely on the cusp of it. I mean, I don't think they'd get the Philly trade done either. They'd probably have to go some other disgruntled wing. I don't know.
I think they'd have
to even go after.
I don't know who's out there. I don't know who that's going to be. We kind of don't know. If they got a third
deal either.
If they got a third team involved who really liked Buddy Hield, like the Sacramento owner liked Buddy Hield when they traded Cousins to get him. I don't know, maybe some combination of Buddy Hield goes to Philly, or I don't know, maybe somebody really likes Bagley. I think if you got like a third team involved, you could get a Simmons deal done with some picks, but probably not happening. But yeah, if they can find like another wing, or maybe Mo Harkless, who was supposed to be good for the Heat last year, maybe he finally does something for somebody. I mean, I don't know. I still think they're in the play-in game. Like if you go down the West, I think they're better than the teams below them. I think they're better than San Antonio. I think they're better than the Pelicans, especially if Zion's missing significant time, which it sounds like he will.
I have them finishing 10th, so they lose in the play-in for me.
That's what I have them doing.
I think is appropriate.
It's an improvement for them. I think they should be plenty happy with that. Yeah. The only thing is they don't really have a lot of cap room moving forward. They need to get something for Bagley. The losing Bogdan last offseason for nothing was just a catastrophe for them. They can't afford to do that again with a young asset.
Yeah, the trade scenarios for Bagley are I really don't know what it would be, because
I don't know what it would be either.
Because you got to at least assume Hield would be with them. I just don't know what you would get out of that. You're certainly not getting Simmons or Beal.
No, not as the center of the trade. No. And I don't know that Beal really helps them as much as you would hope, just because of it's a really small lineup with Fox, unless you traded Halliburton.
I don't want to do that.
I don't want to do that. Yeah,
I wouldn't do that either.
I wouldn't want to trade Fox or Halliburton. I'm pretty happy with that. I think that's the only thing I'm happy with on this team. I guess Barnes, maybe you could upgrade on Barnes, but I think Barnes is good. I think if you're trying to make the playoffs, I think Barnes is a guy that you want.
Yeah, they're all right. I mean, I don't know how they'll really improve in terms of building that team out. They're not going to get a free agent next year. So
no, trading Hield and Bagley are their only trade chips. Yeah. So, and given the history of Sacramento, I'm sure they'll find a way to mess it up and disappoint me, but maybe they get it together. All right, final team in the Pacific and final team in the West that we haven't talked about yet, the Golden State Warriors. Yeah, do you want to talk about them, what they did last year?
Yeah, I mean, almost made it to the playoffs. I thought the play-in game was really exciting. Both games that they had were actually really exciting.
Yeah.
Steph was pretty much on his own the whole year. Wiggins is not really turning into the guy they thought he'd be. They had Clay out the entire season. Still waiting on Wiseman to kind of turn into the DeAndre Ayton that I thought he would be. But I think they're getting Clay back in December. So
around Christmas time is the target.
Pretty good.
Yeah, Christmas time is the target.
Jordan Poole had a great preseason. I thought I was a fan of him coming out of Michigan, so he has a really good opportunity here.
I almost had him as my most improved player.
I think he's going to be awesome.
Yeah, we'll get into I actually have Curry for MVP this year, which is the reason I didn't
Okay.
have Poole for
Yeah.
most improved. Curry was in the MVP conversation last year, as he
Yeah.
should have been. He had a career year, just absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah.
Carried
Won
that
the
team.
scoring.
Yeah, won the scoring title, carried that team. I mean, they really didn't have a lot of depth with that group last year. It was pretty sparse. They're projected at 47 and a half, so 48 and 34 for the year. I'm taking the over.
Yeah.
I'm
Me
a
too.
little scared to do that, but even if they don't get anything much from Clay, I still think this is a 50-win group. It's a good look. It looks like a good team. They got some depth in the offseason, which is what they didn't have last year. I see them making a big improvement. Even, they were still on pace for 44 and 38 last year, even with Curry basically carrying the team the entire year. Draymond Green was by far their second best player last year, and
Yeah.
he doesn't have to do that this year, or at least to the extent that he did last year. He's not by far the second best player anymore. So you're talking about a 4-win improvement to hit the over. I think they're easily doing that. They add Jonathan Kuminga with their draft pick that they got back from Minnesota. That looks like a heist to me, that deal. They trade D'Lo for Wiggins and the Kuminga pick. I think Wiggins is better than D'Lo. I don't know how you feel.
I think that could probably be true only because D'Lo never really kept going at that level that he was at in Brooklyn once he got traded. I feel like you never really saw that spark out of him anymore.
No.
Kuminga pick I thought was awesome too. I think that was definitely a steal at 9. I thought he was going to go higher.
Oh,
than
yeah.
that.
Yeah, I think before the season, I think there were some talkings of him being like in the top 4, maybe even cracking the top 3 before last year. He's one thing worth mentioning with him is he's young. He moved up a grade, so he should be in this next year's draft.
Okay.
So he kind of struggled with he was in the G League affiliate, the Ignite, I think that's what they call him. And he was kind of inconsistent. He's very raw, but like when you factor in his age, that he's, last year should have been his senior year of high school, and he was playing, professional basketball. I think you can forgive some of that. He could be incredible for them. I mean, he's got top 5 draft pick talent as far as his raw abilities. It's just kind of all putting it together. But yeah, they get him and Wiggins. For all the Wiggins stuff, which he's been like probably one of the most disappointing number 1 draft picks we've ever had, he's still a solid NBA player. I mean, he's decent on defense. Like, he's athletic. Like, he could score a little bit on his own. Like, I just think the defensive stuff you get with him is better than, what little bit of extra inefficient scoring you get from D'Lo. So to get Kuminga, who's like, a really good prospect and a better player for D'Angelo Russell, like, I think that was a heist.
That'll turn out for them.
Yeah. Jordan Poole, I imagine will eventually be coming off the bench. I have to guess he'll be starting for them. I thought it would be Avery Bradley, but they cut him for whatever reason. So they've got a free roster spot now. Moses Moody, I don't know. Do you have any strong feelings on him?
Not really.
Yeah.
Most surprising part about this lineup is they have 5 guys who won the original title in 2015. Since they brought Iggy back, and they still have Looney on the team.
I didn't even realize that.
Yeah,
wow.
So that's a lot of teams have kind of.
They have Jordan Bell too. Was it Jordan Bell around for the title run?
I think he was on one of those teams. Yeah, when KD was there.
Yeah.
They're the third team, I guess, that's kind of built that sort of roster where they're bringing back guys that got them to the title or close. The Lakers doing it, and then Boston brought some guys back that brought them to the conference finals a couple of years ago.
Yeah. I think Iguodala at this point is just a locker room guy. I don't know if you watched much of him in Miami. It looked like it was over last year.
I thought he was going to have a better role, like on the floor, I guess, for Miami, but he didn't really seem like he really had much to do there.
The years have caught up with him. He doesn't have the defensive fangs that he used to anymore. He can still get up and dunk on you, which is funny when it happens, but like defensively, you can just tell the legs are kind of gone now. Moody, I don't know. He had a terrible tournament. Really great season in college at Arkansas. really bad NCAA tournament. That's concerning for me, playing on like a big stage like he's going to have to for Golden State to kind of struggle the way he did. But the good news is, if Clay comes back in December, if Kuminga gives you anything, they don't really need him to do much, if anything. They pick up Otto Porter for like nothing. I think that's a really good pickup. I haven't seen too many people talk about that.
Yeah, I think that the first contract he had is what really just threw him away from people signing a 4-year max out of his rookie extension.
Yeah.
But for getting him for what they got, I think that's value at least.
Well, he's big. He's 6'8" and like a decent sized guy. Really awesome 3-point shooter. I mean, even if they just stick him in the corner, which he can do a little bit more than that. But even if that's all they want him to do, like that's really going to be helpful for them. I think defensively he can be a little bit more than kind of what people think of him as. It just sucks. He was on Washington where they didn't really do anything while he was there. He gets traded to Chicago when they're kind of not really doing anything under Jim Boylan, and then he gets shipped off to Orlando where they're not really doing anything either. So he's not really been in the spotlight for a long time. I still think he can give you something. I think Kevon Looney is a backup center. Draymond can still give you some minutes at the 5. If Wiseman takes a step forward, I think he could. Wiseman had a kind of a disappointing rookie year, but he basically took a year off of basketball because of the Memphis suspension. So he's going from high school, year off of basketball, straight into starting on a Western Conference potential playoff team. That's a tough ask for a rookie.
Yeah.
I think he could be good for them. Yeah. 48.5. I'm sorry, 47.5. I think that's an over.
Yeah, I have him at the 4 seed.
I also have them at the 4 seed. Juan Toscano Anderson, they get him back. I thought he was good for them. I think Bielitsa, he was on Miami. I could not figure out why we didn't do anything with him. He barely saw the court for us.
I liked him in Sacramento, so
I did
was
too.
Surprised by that.
I was shocked that we didn't throw him out there at all. I think he could be big for them. And by big, I mean 15 minutes, and like in a playoff game, he catches fire and hits 3 threes in a quarter or something. Like I think he could be somewhat of a difference maker. It's a deep roster. I don't love anything outside of Curry at the point guard for them. I don't really see another point guard even on the roster. But I'm sure they'll bring someone in. I think they've experimented with some Wiggins stuff at point guard. I think Poole can do a fine job.
IT still hasn't gotten signed yet.
Yeah, it could be IT, and I think that'd be a fine pickup for them.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's go to the recap here. I've realized we haven't really touched on our end of season award winners. I kind of had to go through the whole thing before I felt confident about picking anybody. So I guess I'll just go through my list of the standings, and we'll just stop me when you have something different.
All right.
So I have 1, the Lakers, 2, Phoenix, 3, Utah, 4,
Same.
Golden State.
Yep.
5, Denver.
Yep.
6, Portland.
So I have the Clippers at 6.
Clippers at 6. I think that's high. I have the Clippers at 9. I think Portland's better, minus Kawhi on the Clippers.
Portland will probably prove to be better because they always prove.
They always do. Yeah, I know.
Like on paper anyway.
I wanted to have Dallas in like a top 4 or 5 seed, but I just can't see it. I just can't see it. I
can't put them the high.
I could see Denver maybe struggling and getting into a play-in situation, but I don't see them. I don't see them topping any of the top 4 in the West. Okay, then I had 7 as Dallas.
Yeah, me too.
8 as Memphis.
That's where I have Portland.
Okay, so you had Portland at 8, and then I had the Clippers at 9, and you had Memphis?
I had Memphis, yeah.
Okay. 10, Sacramento.
Yeah.
11, New Orleans.
Yep.
12, the Spurs.
I had Minnesota at 12.
Minnesota is like, they're going to be competing for a top draft pick in my mind. So you had you had Minnesota. I had Minnesota at 13. You had the Spurs at 13. So basically, we just have them swapped. Then I have
Yeah.
Houston and Oklahoma City.
Yeah, I had the Spurs at 14 and Houston at 13 actually. So I'm
Oh
taking Houston
wow.
over San Antonio this year.
Okay.
Yeah,
Dang.
by
That
like
is
by
that
one.
is.
I think it'll be by one game.
I think Popovich is. I like Steven Silas, the coach of Houston. I think he kind of got a raw deal. He came in there to kind of work on the Harden situation, and then Harden immediately left. So I don't know. We'll see. I'm surprised ours were as similar as they were, given kind of like
Yeah,
I think the West. I think 1 through 6 is going to come, particularly 1 through 4. I think that could be like 3 games difference between those
yeah.
teams, and I don't think it'll be 10 spots between 1 and 7. I don't think it'll be 10 games. Do
I
you?
don't think it would be either. I mean, it is kind of a drop off for me between after 1 through 5, probably
That
6 through 10 are the next tier, and they're
that
probably all pretty competitive for those spots.
that's I would say 6 through 8, maybe 6 through 9 for me, with the Clippers being the last
Yeah,
like competitive team. I think Sacramento just I think they're kind of the best of the rest when it comes to like New Orleans, San
yeah,
Antonio,
yeah.
Minnesota,
They're
and that
definitely
group.
ahead of the
I
rest of
think
them.
I think they just kind of like happen into that last play-in spot. I think they're a lot further away than the Clippers are, at least in terms of the talent on their team. So you had KD for MVP, given the Kyrie news that we got right after we released the East episode. I think you're looking pretty good on that pick.
Yeah, that
I thought about copying you.
that
But I
definitely
would
strengthened it. And with not having Luca and their team being very good, I can't take him. I don't think Jokic will do it. I think Curry's a pretty good pick too, just because.
yeah, I think they'll make a big improvement and they'll be fun
Yeah,
to watch. It'll be Curry mania all over again.
yeah,
Um,
and they'll be better this year, so that's definitely helping out.
yeah, I think KD is a I think it really solid pick. I think you're going to look pretty good on that. I think he only has one MVP. Is that right?
Yeah, 2014, it's only one.
Yeah, that doesn't make sense to me. So I feel like he's owed another one. But I
Yeah,
guess Kobe only had one in his career, and Shaq only
yeah,
had
that's true.
two. As crazy as that is.
Kobe's didn't come till 2010, 2009, something like that.
Yeah,
So
it was the year they played the Magic in the
yeah,
finals.
2010.
Yeah. Um,
That's crazy.
I know. Yeah, he should have definitely had more, but we'll probably talk about some historic stuff with him somewhere in the season where we're running out of topics. Um, Rookie of the year, I had Cade. I think Detroit's
Yeah,
going to
me
be
too.
like, okay, you ended up settling on Cade.
Yeah,
I think they're going to be fighting for a play-in spot. I don't think they're going to get it, but I think with them being competitive, his kind of the playmaking and like he had a tendency to hit some clutch shots for Oklahoma State. I just think with the highlight media machine, I think he'll just gain a lot of like narrative votes. Even if Jalen Green is putting up 30 a game in
yeah,
Houston. Most improved player. It sounded like you had Michael Porter Jr. I had RJ Barrett.
yeah. I think MPJ, just the situation he has with Jamal being out, he's the two option in Denver. They're going to be a good team. It's
I
he
think
has
that's
to make the leap, but
I think that's a really solid pick. I think I would have had him if I didn't have Curry for MVP instead of Barrett. I would have had Jordan Poole. He's been balling out in preseason. Um, yeah. Coach of the year. Did you pick a coach of the year?
Nash, I guess I have them
That's
being the
that's who
best
I
team.
have.
So
Yeah, I think just with the all the Kyrie nonsense and everything that roster is kind of going to be going through. I think they're going to win a lot of games, and I think he's going to be kind of seen as like the guy who kind of kept it all together. Defensive player of the year, I had Davis.
I want to go Embiid. I just know he won't be available
Enough.
for the whole. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, I could see Embiid. Um, that's a good pick too. I don't think it'll be Gobert again.
no,
I don't think it'll be Giannis again. I just think for the Lakers to be a really good team, like I think they will be. I think Davis is just going to be a monster on defense. He's had a long off season to rest. I hope he's healthy. He's had some injury stuff. Um, Yeah. Sixth man of the year. Did you pick that? I had no idea what to do for
I
this.
mean, it's hard to pick that one. I mean, you could go Clarkson, but he might end up starting over Conley anyway. Maybe Campaign's another guy for sixth man. I don't really know. Those are hard to pick.
Joe Ingles, he almost won it
Yeah,
last year. I picked Kevin Herter. No particular reason. I think Atlanta's going to be good. He's guaranteed to come off the bench, and I was just looking for a good team with somebody good off the bench who's guaranteed to come off the bench. I don't think there's a
yeah.
world that he starts for them. So, yeah, I don't feel strongly about that pick. But
That's always the hardest one to pick.
RJ
before the
Barrett,
season.
RJ Barrett and Cade for rookie. Really, Cade is the one I feel strongest about. Like, if I was to bet on something, I feel good about RJ Barrett too. He's got the Knicks thing. I think he's primed to take a huge leap forward.
Yeah. And the thing with Cade, I think he has the better team. I think they'll be better than Houston, so that definitely helps out. They're both gonna be scoring machines, but I think Cade can, be a better playmaker than Jalen Green, and the record will help out. So I like that pick.
Yeah. All right. I guess we can move on to the playoffs here. So just to kind of recap, you had Milwaukee in the finals, right?
Yeah, I had Milwaukee coming out of the East.
I have Brooklyn. I still have Brooklyn. I think even without Kyrie, I have to imagine they're trading him. So whatever they get back from that deal, I think will help them and keep them kind of above.
I don't think losing Kyrie puts them that much farther away from the finals. I mean, they played without him last year and they were an inch away from being there anyway. So I don't think it hurts them that much.
I will say, after watching Giannis this past week, completely torch everyone with what looks to be a new jump shot. I'm a little scared. I'm a little scared for the Heat pick that I had. And I'm a little scared for my finals pick. If he looks really confident at a jump shot and it looks pretty smooth, if he starts shooting like fairly decently, it's Giannis's world and we're all just living in it.
Yeah. I know it's preseason and I know they don't play as hard as defense in the preseason, but when he gets the ball off the tip, dribbles and immediately pulls up from three for the first
right in
shot
someone's face too. Yeah, that's frightening.
Yeah, he was hitting them very consistently, like turnarounds from the mid-range, 3-pointers.
Yeah, you're looking good on that pick.
We've been saying like if that ever happens, everyone else is screwed. So maybe this is it.
I think this is it. I didn't, and I feel like in the when we were talking about the top 50 players, I was like, well, we've kind of seen the best that we're going to see of him. Like it's going to be like really good years coming forward, but like I don't think he's going to make any huge improvements at this stage. And there he goes. Like if he comes back with a jump shot, it's I think over.
Coming off the Finals MVP, you have to elevate at some point.
Yeah, if he's hitting jump shots, he's the MVP of the league.
Yeah,
just because there's nothing anybody can do with him. Okay, so I went ahead and did the play-in games just because that's the only way I can make it make sense in my head. So I had Dallas and Memphis playing as the 7 and 8, Dallas winning, Clippers and Sacramento playing as the 9-10, the Clippers winning there, then the Clippers beating Memphis to take the 8th seed. So the Battle of LA is my 1-8. Obviously, I think the Lakers kind of roll in that one because I don't expect Kawhi's back.
I have the Lakers playing Portland in 5 games probably.
Yeah,
barring any injuries.
Yeah, you'll have the crazy Lillard game that gets them over. Gets them over the hump. They may take 6 if they get the crazy Lillard and McCollum game.
The games could be pretty close.
In the bubble year where Portland was kind of competitive with them, I think this group they have now is better than what they were going up against the Lakers with in that last series. I guess the Lakers are also better, but
the Lakers are a lot better, I think.
Yeah. I still think the pieces that matter for Portland, I think it would make a difference. I don't think they would actually test them, but they would be close games. My 4-5, I have Golden State and Denver. I have Golden State moving on.
That's what I have to.
Depending on the version of Jamal Murray they get back, if it's a very hobbled Jamal Murray or no Jamal Murray, I think Golden State probably rolls in that series.
I think it's going to be a really good series. I had a hard time with that one just because Jokic was an MVP. I think MPJ is most improved, so I think he's a great piece for them too. So yeah, it really is depending on what they get out of Jamal Murray. But even if they don't get a top 30 player out of Clay, I think the Warriors can do it.
I think it's
Probably
7.
6 or 7.
I
Yeah.
think it's 7 if everyone's healthy. I think if they get something from Clay and nothing from Murray, I think it's probably a 5 or a 6. If anyone's going to do something with Jokic defensively, it's going to be Draymond.
Yeah, I think that matchup is really big for Golden State.
That will be really interesting and fun if we get that matchup.
Mhm.
The 3-6, I have Utah and Portland. I struggle with this one. I really wanted to pick Portland, but I ended up settling on Utah. I think in a hypothetical, I think that'd be a 7-game series. I think that'd be a really fun series with Mitchell and Lillard just going at it, trading
50-point games.
Yeah, trading 50 pieces. Yeah, that'd be something.
I have Utah Clippers and I have Utah winning. I don't think that series would be super close, especially because Kawhi probably won't be there anyway. Probably 6 games.
With no Kawhi. One thing for Portland, if they did play Utah, I think they could run Nance at the 5 and just torture Gobert. I love watching Gobert getting just absolutely tortured. He's so cocky for like someone who really doesn't do much offensively.
He was getting absolutely burned.
I love watching him getting torched.
Yeah.
So for my 2-7, I have Phoenix and Dallas. I think Phoenix would run with that one.
Yeah.
Unless something if somehow Dallas is able to talk the Nets into some Kyrie trade. I think Kyrie's a good fit in Dallas just with the COVID stuff. Like Texas is a lot more lenient, so you could pretty much play all the games. I think that would be really fun with him and Doncic. So I'm like selfishly rooting for that, but like I don't think Brooklyn is interested in Porzingis in the slightest. I have Phoenix moving on in that series.
Yeah, I don't think that'd be too close. Phoenix they just proved that they're a good team and they look just as solid this year. I don't think Dallas improved that much, especially compared to Phoenix. So
I think Ayton would put Porzingis in the torture chamber for that whole series. That would be bad.
He's big enough.
That'd be a real ugly look for Porzingis. I think Ayton would just be running all over him and just locking him up on defense. It'd be bad. Yeah. And I think you have enough
on the floor.
You have enough guys to make life tough on Doncic. I mean, he's still going to score like crazy, but like between Crowder, Cam Johnson, Bridges, you have that's enough to wear him down over the course of the series. If it went long, I think it'd be a 5 or a 6 at most. I don't think it'd be a sweep. You get a crazy Luka game. So then I guess moving on to the second round, I think we both have the Lakers and Golden State, right?
Yep.
That would be
we have the same conference semi match
for
both sides.
Oh, that's perfect because then it saves us time talking about it. Lakers Golden State, that would be a phenomenal series. I mean, we saw what that would look like in the play-in game. Both of these teams are improved from last season. That'd be so much fun. I still think the Lakers probably move on. I had a tough time with that. I really wanted to move Golden State on, but I was like, is this the series that the Russell Westbrook thing happens? I was like, I still think I don't love the LeBron matchup for Golden State. I don't think they have the horses to kind of make his life tough enough.
Yeah, and Draymond can only do so much against Davis, depending on how much he's switching on and off Davis and LeBron. I don't know how they'll play him. But
over the course of the series, I think in one game, I think Draymond can do enough with Davis, but I don't think Draymond at his age now can. I don't think you want him guarding Davis for 7 games just nonstop. I think that would be a tough ask.
Yeah, I have them moving on. 6 games. I don't think it goes 7, but it's not a blowout.
Yeah, it'd be a competitive series. I would hope for 7. I think if it went 7, I think that would kind of favor Golden State.
You think so?
I think they have the coaching advantage.
Yeah, that's true.
Kerr versus LeBron in the coaching matchup.
That's basically what it'd be.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't love. I mean, we got tomorrow, or I guess it'll be tonight when this goes up. We'll get to see kind of what Golden State has for LeBron. Like if Kuminga can give them athletically, he can probably, give LeBron some trouble. but it's just his like the mental game defensively that he's kind of missing out on right now, and that'll come with time. But like asking a rookie Kuminga or Andrew Wiggins to kind of match up with LeBron or ancient Iguodala, I know that's kind of been the classic matchup. Watching Iguodala last year in Miami, it was just clear to me that it was over for him. Like it's just done. He has nothing left to give.
When was he drafted? 2004, 2005?
2005,
I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's about time.
Yeah. Okay, so Utah Phoenix. I think it's a competitive series, but I think Phoenix kind of runs away with that.
Yeah. Yeah, I have Phoenix as well. I think
that'd be
it'd be kind of another series with Booker and Mitchell trading games, and Gobert and Ayton matchup is going to be awesome. So
yeah, I just think they're built very similarly, both teams, but I just think Phoenix is a lot better.
Yeah, they have the Chris Paul leadership and intangibles. So I think they beat them.
It'd be a fun series, but I think Phoenix is probably 5 or 6. I just think they're better.
Yeah,
probably lean towards 6. So conference finals, we both have Lakers, Phoenix.
Yep.
Who do you have moving on?
I have the Lakers. I feel like you're not going to say that.
No, I agree.
Oh, you do the Lakers?
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. No, I think
the Westbrook game is coming. It's just not here yet.
Yeah, it's gonna rear its ugly head for all to see in the finals.
Yeah.
So
I think the Lakers are just better.
I think that's probably a 7-game series.
Yeah.
I just think
on the revenge tour last year.
I just think that the Davis Ayton matchup. I mean, Ayton did a great job on him in their series last year, but I think if the Lakers had any more help, I think it would have been tough for Phoenix. And I'm still waiting. Still waiting for LeBron to fall off.
Really, I don't think he will. I mean, he has with Westbrook, he doesn't really have a way to fall off because he's got someone to kind of hold him up.
Yeah, his numbers will be down this year, but come playoff time, he's more likely to be well rested and ready.
Well, that's another thing. They had a longer offseason, so to fully rest LeBron with some help coming in his lineup, I think that's pretty terrifying.
And I think in the playoffs for the Lakers, we talked about the DeAndre Jordan, Dwight Howard thing. They're not going to play 2 centers in the playoffs for most of these series. They're going to go with Davis at the 5, and then they've got Ariza and Melo to kind of cycle through as that stretch 4. Ariza, I can't believe he's still around, but he was solid for us, last year in Miami. He can still shoot threes. He still plays good defense. He's not going to be like a guard your best player guy anymore. He'll have to be, I guess, for them, but I guess he can hold up well enough to do that. And yeah, I just don't think DeAndre Jordan, I think it's kind of over for him. As like a super productive player, but I don't think they'll need either of them in the playoffs. Dwight is still nice off the bench, and then I think they've got just a slew of guards who can do something in a playoff series. If one doesn't have it going, they've got so many options.
Yeah, they're deep. I mean, that's definitely what's going to carry them, I think, this far. I think the scoring that they have, the scoring depth is going to be huge in this matchup with Giannis kind of locking down the paint. They can kind of spread things around and get him not as disruptive. So
yeah. So you have a Milwaukee Lakers finals. Who do you have winning it?
I don't know. Like, I think
pick.
Giannis is going to be on. Oh, I have a pick. I just don't know how confident I am in it. I think Giannis is going to come back, especially with a jump shot, and really be on that revenge repeat tour. But I think the Lakers would probably beat them in a 7-game series.
You have the Lakers. Okay.
I think so. I'm not really super sure about it. I think Milwaukee has a great chance of repeating at the same time, but in another world, I really want Melo to get his ring. So there's that part too. I think he's really going to work for it.
I would like to see Westbrook get a ring too, just so he's remembered more favorably. I think he's going to be remembered kind of poorly, and I think that's unfair. I think he was really good for a really long time. He plays his ass off. Like, I would like to see his career kind of validated as more than just triple-double guy.
Yeah.
But I have Lakers and Brooklyn. I think Brooklyn wins that series. I think this is where the Russell Westbrook experiment turns into a disaster. Kind of all those nice things I just said about him. The only problem is he doesn't realize that he's not the guy anymore that he was in Oklahoma City. And I think particularly with Harden and Durant matched up with him on the other side, he is going to be out to prove that he is the best among them. And so he's going to go into that series thinking he's the best player, and it's just going to fall apart. I would, in your final scenario, I would love to see Giannis against LeBron or Davis. That would be so much fun. And then Drew Holiday on Westbrook would be a phenomenal matchup. But for the Brooklyn series, I think they're two very similar teams, like where they've got two top 10 guys, both teams. And this is, of course, if Kyrie never plays another game for them and they get nothing for it. Two top 10 players, and Durant versus LeBron, Harden versus, not necessarily matched up against Davis, but you've also got Harden there. And then the rest of the guys on Brooklyn, I just believe in a little bit more than the rest of the guys on the Lakers. I think Brooklyn just, we talked about the Lakers having a solid roster up and down. Brooklyn is just a little bit more solid, I think, outside of the point guard position. But even Patty Mills, we've seen him in the finals just come up big for the Spurs in their runs. He could still do it. I mean, he was torching everybody in the Olympics.
Put Patty against some American players and he'll toast them. That's just what he's done in the Olympics.
Yeah, and particularly Westbrook. He's going to be really mouthy and I think Brooklyn's better put together, and I think that would probably be a 7-game series, and it'd be really fun to get one last LeBron Durant matchup, especially on a little bit more of an even playing field. Yeah, we really haven't seen a Durant LeBron finals matchup that was somewhat even since Durant was like 23. When he was in Oklahoma City, and the Heat were looking for their first title.
Yeah, that was the first one.
With LeBron, at
least. Apparently the reports for Westbrook is when he got traded, they had those three had a team meeting, Davis, Westbrook, and LeBron, to set their egos aside for the season. And I feel like if that's true, it's probably because they're anticipating that Brooklyn matchup. So who knows how likely that is.
Westbrook is not going to do that. Once they throw the ball up and the whistle's blown, it's all bets are off for him. He's going to be looking to go at them. And particularly Harden, for the way that Houston situation ended.
Yeah. I think the thing with the Lakers-Bucks matchup is if Milwaukee happens to win, it really would kind of be the torch passing series.
It would be. It would be.
That's a back-to-back for Giannis. He's kind of proving he's top dog instead of LeBron. So
you got to get a similar thing going with the Brooklyn Lakers matchup. Durant has always been kind of salty about him never being as well regarded as LeBron. I think that would finally be like I finally got him.
Especially after KD wins MVP this year. I think I have KD as the top player in the league anyway. So
yeah, you did. I still had LeBron. I'm still waiting to see it happen. I'm still waiting to see someone take the torch, but he's holding on to it for dear life.
I think this is definitely the season to do it, and it's going to be one of those two teams, one of those two guys. So
yeah. All right. Well, anything else standing out that you want to talk about?
That's it.
That's all I got. All righty. Well, thanks for listening. Please consider subscribing and liking the video. We're going to try to stick to a weekly upload schedule. And hopefully next week we get back to the Monday morning point guard instead of the Tuesday morning point guard. But appreciate the listen. Have a good night.